What's good, everybody? It's your boy Malik Washington back at it again with another episode of the BMB. I hope you all are doing well wherever you all reside. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to keep this video short as I don't really have too much to say. This episode will be relatively short, and maybe perhaps it's more of a lesson learned for people who may perhaps come across this video, whether if you're on YouTube, Facebook, or wherever I decide to post this. An unfortunate situation happened not so long ago, I want to say within maybe a day or so, where I'm sure a lot of you heard about the unfortunate death of the young brother Tyre Nichols, right? Though his death is not unseemly like other deaths that have happened as a result of police brutality, this situation is extremely sad in how it was handled. I believe on both based off, and I've seen the video, I believe that there were instances where Tyre was wrong and he could have handled it a lot better. But there were more than him. The cops did a lot of things wrong as well in how they handled Tyre. The police force is supposed to be our proverbial sentinels. They're supposed to be the guards, the aegis of our lives. They're supposed to protect us from any harm. They're supposed to enforce laws, enforce the rules. Whenever people go off balance or they infringe against the common law that is in America or wherever you may reside, guards, police officers, you name it, the force are meant to protect you, make sure that crime is down or at least reduced, because you can never get completely rid of crime because it's a byproduct of our civilized society. But overall, you look to the cops for that protection, for that understanding, for that example. They're supposed to be the people that you've hired, they're supposed to be the people that you've hired to make sure that your lives and your children's lives and the upcoming generations that are yet to come's lives will be secured, will be guaranteed, will be given justice in a timely fashion. You wouldn't dare to think that cops are meant to destroy you, hurt you, harm you, although they have the capacity to do so if necessary. They are supposed to read you your rights. They are supposed to allow you to live if you are in compliance to their demands. They are supposed to give you due process, allow you to be able to go to court and allow you to make the defense as to whether if you were treated with, the utmost dignity or if you were treated like an animal. But in this instance with Tyre Nichols, it was done animalistically. Reason being why I say that, if you watch the video, you would totally get my meaning. It was done in the most excessive way. I don't disagree with cops using force, as force is necessary sometimes to make some people who are hysterical, who are criminal-minded, who have the intent to do harm and not comply, to comply. I agree that force should definitely be used in some manner or in some regard. I don't believe in excessive force being used against those who are trying their best, doing their best as humanely possible to listen to your demands. And yet, in spite of listening to your demands, you still beat on them because you have the ability to do so. Some people, when they have power, they will use that power against you because they have the will to do it. And what happened to that young man and what those 5 officers did to him, it was totally wrong. They all did things in their own way that was off, and based off of those degrees of what they've done, they should be adjudged accordingly, individually, based off of that alone. But they all got indicted for murder. At the end of the day, he did get justice. Some make the argument that, of course, they believe that this was done rather quickly as opposed to when white on black crimes get addressed. They say, well, it's amazing how when it comes to black officers, they were indicted for murder very quickly. But when it came to guys like Derek Chauvin and his encounter with George Floyd, it took months, maybe even up to a year in some instances or some cases, where white officers in their encounters with these black civilians, the videos don't come out until so many months later. Arguably, that could definitely be so. Nonetheless, I'm not making that comparison. I am more focused on the fact whether if this young brother had got justice or not, and I believe in a sense he has. But irrespective of whether he got justice or not, he is dead, and he did pass away. And rest in peace to him, and condolences to the family that lost a son, a nephew, a cousin, you name it, a brother. Nobody who does, or at least tries to live up to the standard of what is being human, should have to pass away over nonsense, over whatever personal vendetta or some personal issues that you may have in mind going on throughout your day, because you're in power and you think you can do whatever you want with that power. Police officers are trained to protect, but they're also trained to kill. And certain methods they use do have the ability to take you out, which is why compliance is extremely imperative in these instances. I understand to black people, compliance is not always worth it, because to some degree, some officers will antagonize you for the hell of antagonizing you. And even some officers can admit there are some shitty people in their forces. Let's just call it a buck 50. Let's just keep it a buck 50 about this. There's bad in everything. There's bad in every occupation you go into. You're going to have shitty people. You're going to have people who lack temperance. You're going to have people who don't know how to be customer centric. You're going to have people who don't know how to engage the general population. But the general consensus on that is, well, maybe you just shouldn't be on the job. But the question is, why aren't we anticipating that these people are coming in being this way? Why aren't we paying attention to certain psychological patterns some of these officers have when they are going out there on the field doing what they're doing? And this isn't, and let me say this. I am not against police officers. I am all about the police. I believe we should have police. I think they're necessary. And I think they are meant to be deterrents to keep criminals from doing the wrong that they're doing. No, they're not going to get rid of crime 100%. That's not going to happen. That's unrealistic. That's an unrealistic goal, because you will forever, in every single generation since time immemorial, you will have criminal-minded or sick people who will continue to do wrong, no matter what you say, how you say it, no matter how society is structured. If somebody wants to do harm, they're going to do harm. Some of your most innocent people can become the worst criminals. We see this with serial killers, how they start off good and then they transition into being bad for whatever the reason. And a lot of times it could be for sport, and they won't give a shit about your life. They somehow become apex predators, and whatever it is that the crime is, but they enjoy doing it, and they enjoy doing it without any type of remorse. But with that being said, that's why you have people who are willing to risk their lives, willing to make split-second decisions that can be very emotional, that can be very triggering in the start of it. So you can have some degree of compassion and understanding why sometimes cops will make mistakes. But at the same time, there are instances where you really could have handled that a lot better. And especially if you're a cop that's been, I imagine, in the force for 15, 20, even 30 plus years, you should know by now how these things go. I'm never going to say you're going to get used to death-ridden situations, but you're certainly, when it comes to the most basic assignments that you do as a cop, I imagine it should not be that complicated in handling traffic stops or anything like that. But there can be some non-compliant people in the world. And in certain instances, Tyre did not comply. But there were instances that he did. And in spite of complying, a few of the police officers went above and beyond their duty by beating the hell out of him as if he was some animal on the street. That wasn't right. And mind you, these were not this time white people that did this. This was our own people that did this. Black folks. But yet and still, of course, the media finds some type of way to make it about white supremacy, as they always do. It's not a surprise. And some people who believe that white people have had a lot to do with why black people are the way that they are today, finding some kind of scapegoat. Oh, of course, black people can do no harm. So yeah, let's just blame the fact that 5 black police officers who had power, who had guns, who had batons, beat the shit out of this young black man. Let's blame it on white people. Because, oh yeah, that's right, black people can do no harm. That's just not, that can never happen. This should actually be a wake-up call. But for some people, it will never be a wake-up call, because guess what? It's more about black power than it is about actual black accountability. It's more about black power than it is making sure our people get better and we don't repeat the ways of the past. It's more about black power than it is making sure that we have a better society and better examples for our people to follow. But instead, at every given turn, no matter how many warning signs we're given, we keep on justifying why it's okay for them to continue doing to us what they're doing to us. It's wrong. And I don't care how you slice it. It's sad to see 5 black men beat the shit out of a black man like that. It already happens enough in black gangs. Now y'all want to put it in the police force too? How shitty does that? How stupid can you be? How shitty do you look? How ridiculous does it appear for you to beat up on one man who was restrained? How does that look? Because it doesn't look like you're doing the job of a police officer. It looks like you're a thug in a fucking police uniform. But black people, I think this is necessary for them to see. For the simple fact, they ignore black on black crime. And this is a form of black on black crime. Yes, I said it. It's a form of black on black crime. And I'm glad, to a degree, I am glad that this situation is presenting itself the way that it is, although the ending result was horrible. But I'm glad that it's showing its face, because now you have no choice. You cannot deny what you see. 5 black people did this. Now what are you going to say? White people did it? And if you do that, guess what? Then you look like a fool. Because now people can look at you and say, see, you don't even care about your own, but you are so quick to jump at other races of people. And we can get on them too. But we should most certainly get on each other, because that's embarrassing. That's pathetic. Not that his color should even matter. Not that their color on the police force should even matter, but human beings are human beings, and we're still living in a racial society where we are identifying each other as either black, white, or Asian indifference. We're not identifying as neutral beings. We're not identifying according to our nationalities like we used to in the ancient times, but we don't do that. We're still going off of the basis of our color. Black man, white man, Asian man, Native American man, you name it. It's ridiculous. That kind of force is absolutely inexcusable. And seeing that should make anyone say, I would never want to do that to someone else's child, because I would definitely not do it to mine. But those men, the fact that they casually they kicked him in his face, beat him, restrained him, like they dragged him in an alleyway somewhere and they're just beating them to a pulp. That wasn't right. It just wasn't. So I'm just going to leave it right there and just say to you all, a lesson has to be learned. The culture of the police has to change, but the people also have to change as well. I'm not saying complying always works, but I do always make the argument to do your part. So when it does happen and you do go to court, you fight the injustice in court. But I am also understanding that there are certain instances where you do comply and death still comes your way in spite of you complying. Because some people are just trigger happy and they're evil, and in the eyes of themselves, they don't give a damn about your life. They can just casually kill you and think nothing of it. And others can sit idly by and say, well, just rest in peace. And that in and of itself is not fair, because the other side will make the argument that he just should have just complied. But there are certain instances, I will say, compliance does not always work, people. Because at that point, it's like complying to a bully. Yeah, just keep on letting him do what he does until he gets tired. And then once he beats you to a pulp and you're dead, then we can all just say rest in peace. Black people should not have to comply to die. That should not happen. That shouldn't happen with anybody. Not trying to be funny. That should not happen with anybody, black or white, indifference. Comply, comply, comply. But if I'm complying, and that person is not being temperamental with me, then what about him? How about patience, patience, patience? How about compassion, compassion, compassion? How about that? We can keep making that argument that everyone needs to comply, but to some degree, the other side needs to be accountable too and realize this is a human being. I could take them out. I could kill them. But I'm not going to, because it's not my job to do that. It's my job to make sure I do my part. If it's necessary that I have to take out a life, it should only be because my life is in danger and they're going to do harm to me and my team. Outside of that, my job is to make sure that they have their rights. They read their rights. They understand their rights. We can get them from point A to point B if necessary. But we are not going to kill anybody today. So there needs to be accountability on both sides, not just one. And this black on black shit, there's no excuse for it. And I know black people like to make excuses and say, well, other races kill each other all the time. However, we kill each other at a higher rate. And I say this too. Other races may kill each other, but then all the more reason why you shouldn't. Because why would you want to copycat off of what another culture does? That doesn't make a lot of sense, and that kind of makes your logic a little off. So yeah, other races do kill each other. So what does that mean? That you're supposed to kill each other too? That your life doesn't matter? And because you're black and they're black, you're just supposed to kill them? You're supposed to beat on them? You're supposed to abuse them? You're supposed to hate them? Is that what we're basically saying when we say that? It doesn't matter because this can happen with everybody. So we're not supposed to be accountable for each other anymore. As we always preach in this era, accountability matters, but it doesn't matter when it comes to us. We're the exception. Got it. Got it. If that's the kind of dysfunctional logic you believe in, I'll leave you to it. But I hope that same logic doesn't come back in reverse and harm you, because it will happen and you're not going to like it. But that's typical. Typically, people don't learn until it actually happens and they have to be reactive to it. That's typically how lessons get learned for people who are ideologues and people who are batshit crazy in their thinking. But hey, to each their own. So I'll leave it right there. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Malik Washington. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a good day or good night wherever you reside. And I thank you for listening if you got this far. Stay tuned until the next episode. And with this, I say peace. Stay safe, people.